Hi, and welcome to our update from the recent ICANN 76 meeting in Mexico. We're going to cover the next round of new GTLDs, ICANN's search for a new CEO, developments on tackling DNS abuse, and the latest on ICANN's registration data request service. So the undoubted highlight of ICANN 76 was the formal approval by the ICANN board of the new GTLD subsequent procedures policy, and this effectively gave a green light to the next round of new GTLDs going ahead. This is the most significant milestone we've had to date on the path to the opening of another round, and it means that the implementation process for the next round can begin imminently. ICANN also laid out the next steps for moving things forward in the form of 4 prerequisites which should be completed by the 15th of June, and that's the end of the next ICANN meeting. So the first of these prerequisites is the development of a plan and a timeline to resolve the 38 pending recommendations. There's the development of a work plan and timeline by the implementation review team for implementing all of the approved recommendations. The development of a plan by the GNSO Council for how to handle closed generic TLDs in the next round, as that topic hasn't been resolved yet. And then lastly, the delivery of a plan by the GNSO IDN EPDP. And that plan is to set out which parts of that group's work are going to impact on the next round, and when that dependency work will be completed. The completion of these 4 prerequisites will then feed into ICANN's overall implementation plan for the next round, which it's been asked to deliver to the ICANN board by the 1st of August, and it's already begun working on building out that implementation plan. We think this means that ICANN's likely to provide a target launch date for the opening of the next round by the 1st of August, as that will be derived from the implementation plan that they've built out. So that's going to be a really important milestone for people to look out for. So the ex-CEO, Joran Marby, abruptly stepped down at the end of 2022, and this brought to an end his 6-year tenure in the role. ICANN's existing SVP of Global Stakeholder Engagement, Sally Costerton, was immediately installed as the interim CEO, nominally until the end of June 2023, but that agreement has an automatic 6-month renewal tied into the term, and that 6-month renewal will automatically continue until the new permanent CEO has been installed, or until either party decides to terminate the arrangement. At ICANN 76, the ICANN board held a session in which they explained how they're going to carry out their search for the new CEO. They've established a board search committee, and that's chaired by one of their new board members, Chris Chapman. The search committee is going to search for candidates for the role, but it's going to be only the full board that will have the final say in which of those candidates is selected. And their aim is to make an appointment for the new CEO by the end of the year, so they're giving themselves a considerable amount of time to conduct the search.
The main topic of discussion around DNS abuse at this ICANN meeting were the contract negotiations between registries in ICANN and registrars in ICANN. To make sure that ICANN could plan and allocate resources appropriately for the upcoming negotiations, the registries and registrars wrote to ICANN in November outlining their plan to initiate negotiations and what the expected parameters of those negotiations would be. The negotiations and amendments of the registry agreement and registrar accreditation agreement will only be on DNS abuse and obligations to mitigate. For the purposes of these contract amendments, DNS abuse is being defined as malware, botnets, phishing, farming, and spam, where spam serves as a delivery mechanism for the other forms of DNS abuse just listed. The expectation is that the amendments will create an obligation for registries and registrars to take appropriate action to mitigate or disrupt DNS abuse. The aim of the negotiations is to create a floor rather than a ceiling for registries and registrars, so it won't be establishing best practices for mitigating DNS abuse, but rather creating a minimum standard for what registries and registrars must be doing. There will be a public comment period on the proposed contract amendments, and hopefully this is going to be before the end of 2023, ideally a bit earlier than that. So while these contract amendments dominated the DNS abuse discussions in Cancun, there were a couple of other points of note. The registrar stakeholder groups ACID Tool continue to receive positive feedback across community groups. ACID Tool can be used to help identify the appropriate party to report abuse to and is free to use. If you often deal with abuse and trying to identify who to report that to, you might find acidtool.com useful.
So I'm going to give an update on the access to non-public domain name registration data, which obviously post GDPR has become quite challenging with the masking of various of the data elements that used to previously be in the open public WHOIS record. There does, however, hopefully seem to be some light at the end of the tunnel now. Just before ICANN 76 meeting, the ICANN board formally instructed staff to proceed with the development of what had been called the WHOIS Disclosure System, or WDS. In reality, I think staff had already been working on the design and development of this service, and so they gave an update on where they've got to in Cancun. The service that they are building will be due to launch by late November 2023, and registrars will have an opportunity to onboard in advance of that, likely sometime between about September and November. The service has also now been renamed as the Registration Data Request Service, or RDRS. Just as a reminder of what the service is, the RDRS will be a centralized portal to receive user requests for non-public registration data and then pass them to the relevant registrars. The service will not disclose the requested data, nor does it guarantee that the data will be disclosed, but it will allow for centralized tracking. Decisions about disclosure will continue to be made by the individual registrar sponsoring the domain name in question, and that will be based on their own assessment about whether the requester has a legal basis to have the data disclosed. The registrar will, however, be expected to update the portal, the centralized system, with whether or not they provided disclosure and the rationale for their decision. So the aim of this system really is to capture data on user demand over an operating period of up to 2 years. And there'll be a 1-year check-in to see how things are going. The data then is intended to be used by the ICANN board in its consideration of whether to approve the policy recommendations for the creation of the full System for Standardized Access and Disclosure, or SSAD, which is obviously envisaged to have a much higher functionality, including elements like verification of requesters. So that's where we are at the moment with the access to the WHOIS registration data, and this important timeline of having the system available by the end of the year. So that concludes our update on the activity at ICANN 76. We hope that you found it useful, and if you have any questions on these topics or on anything else related to ICANN's activity, whether in Cancun or more generally, please do get in touch via our website. Thanks very much.